she's just getting all the boys to flirt with her, no matter what, no matter who they are, no matter what they're doing, no matter. You just punched her in the face. Like, that's not very nice. Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm gonna be doing a spoiler-filled review for Frostbite by Richelle Mead. Okay, Richelle Mead. I do have a also spoiler-filled review for the first book. I will link it in the card up there for you to check out. And if you just look at the thumbnail, you will know that this book, I teared up in this book because fuck. So if you haven't read this, this is going to be spoiler-filled because I just need to discuss it. I am really enjoying this series. It took me a long time to get through this book because I was just constantly having my attention pulled in other places, and I regret that because this is just so easy and fun. It's just so easy and it's so fun, and guilty pleasure is a stupid phrase that people shouldn't say, okay? Like, this is something that is just pure pleasure, and it's so much fun. It was delightful, except for that ending that was fucking tragic. But man, okay, so I have several notes that I would like to go over because Miss Mead here, she just did that. She really did that, okay? She popped off with this one. And okay, so here in the first part of the book, we have, I think Rose walks into, I can't remember what the place is because like I said, it took me so long to read this. So my experiences is very, like I read like the first 100 pages and I took a break for like weeks and weeks and weeks. I don't even know how long ago my review was posted. It's been a long time. But she walks in somewhere and then they find out that someone's dead and that there was like a Strigoi attack. So like, it was just so interesting how that was. I just want you to know this review is not going to be concise. It's not going to be in order. We're going to jump all over the place in the book. Like, I don't know how to structure a review in an eloquent way. Like, I just don't. But let's just talk about Mason. Okay, let's just talk about Mason because from my first review of the book, you know I fucking love Mason. And if you know how this book ends, he is dead by the end of this book, but he doesn't come back to life, which is so common in so many fantasy books, especially urban fantasy. I don't know. At least some of the urban fantasy that I've read, there's definitely plenty of like the resurrection trope, and I hate it. But man, so I was like kind of worried that he was gonna die and come back, but he didn't. And Richelle Mead, she killed him and she meant it, and I'm okay with it, even though it's really, really sad, but it shows the consequences of like the Strigoi and what can happen. Okay, Rose has a very complicated relationship with her mother, and her mother gives her a black eye, and here we have Dimitri just being this. It's so, I loved her with Mason. Mason was so, like, he was the same age, he was so innocent, he was so sweet, he was such kind, nice, beautiful man. And then we also meet Adrian in this book, who is another person who is also royalty, and he gives Rose all that perfume, and he's just smoking a bunch of cigarettes, like, thinks he's so cool, like, ooh la la, like, I don't know how to feel about him yet, but I'm pretty sure he's in Bloodline, so I know he's gonna make it all the way to the end, I think, because I think that's him on the covers of Bloodlines. But then we also have this part where, so Maya, who was in the first book, and there's all this girl-on-girl hate, which is just so common, especially in the era of when this, YA urban fantasy was coming out. But by the end of this book, Maya and Rose they're not friends, but they're definitely in a much better place than when they started. And that's just wonderful and beautiful. And I hope that's going to continue in the following books. Adrian, the thing about Adrian that is so fascinating is how he's calling Lissa his cousin because they're both royalty. But then also Rose is like, hey, like, quit flirting with her because she has a boyfriend, and that's Christian, and like, what are you doing? But why is he calling her cousin? Just because they're both royalty? But like, that was weird. We don't need cousins to get together. We don't need that. But Lissa and Adrian's conversation about Lissa's powers was so fascinating. And I think it was in the first book that, like, she talks about, or maybe it was in this book, the whole thing where she can bring things like plants and animals and maybe humans like back from the dead. Can she bring humans back from the dead? Do we know that yet? I don't know. But the fact that she can do that, and like, then they have this like bond to her, is fascinating. And that's right, because that's why Rose has the bond with her, because yes, and it's supposed to be a secret, but then somehow Adrian knew about it even though it was supposed to be a secret. So how does Adrian know about it? How does he know so much? Why does Adrian know so much. I am intrigued. The ending of this was just so, like, before Mason is so tragically taken away from us, that whole scene where, sorry, we're gonna have to, okay, so like the middle part when it's discussed between like all these adults where they're like, okay, but like the Strigoi, they're coming for us, and like we just need to go for it. We need to like go after them and like find them and like kill, like beat their ass. Like we need to just, I don't even care if we have to get these little Dampiers, these little guardians, like if we have to have them like be graduating at 16 so we can have like an army and be ready, like we need to go and fight and be on our way. It's like, oh man, like just the like slowly building tension of it is pretty interesting. And then Mia and Eddie and Mason were all like, no, they're right, we need to get off our ass, we need to go, and we like, they're gonna come for us or we're gonna come for them, like we need to get up and go. But then all of a sudden Rose is like, don't be an idiot, we need to have a plan, we need to like see what's going on. And then also at the beginning of the book she has that conversation with her mom, and she's telling her mom like, well, you know, why didn't you search the room first before? Because if you had searched the room first, then maybe like you would have avoided this issue. But then by the end of the book, she's like lost her boyfriend slash one of her best friends slash friends with benefits kind of thing. There's a lot of sex in these books, like not explicit sex, but there's a lot of like making eyes at each other, and just the men are all about your girl Rose. Like she's just getting all the boys to flirt with her, no matter what, no matter who they are, no matter what they're doing, no matter how inappropriate it is, like they want her. And you know, wouldn't it be nice to be Rose? Because I mean, who doesn't want 3 boys chasing after them? But then one of them, you know, gets his neck snapped. And that, I just thought, speaking of Rose and Mason, the whole scene where they are like, I think about to have sex or something, and then Rose is like thinking about Dimitri the entire time, is just such a tragedy, because I loved Mason and Mason deserved better. And then I was like going through this again to like make notes and stuff, and so Mia was telling Rose like, you're such an idiot, how can you not see how amazing Mason is? So I'm like, did Mia have a crush on Mason and we just didn't explore that? Because that's really sad also. And just, man, I'm just so interested in Lissa's powers. Like I really want to see more about Lissa's powers, and like, you know what I mean? Like I feel like this book was very focused on the romantic-ish parts of it and like the who's with who, but I mean, again, Adrian's coming in here and he seems to know a lot. It was wild. And then the end with all of the like royal names that were listed on the wall, because eventually those 3, Eddie and Mason and Maya, whatever her name is, finally are like off their ass, and they went because they find out that all these Strigoi they're in Spokane, and Rose finds out and she's like, oh shit, they went, I have to go after them. And like, and then they go in like this tunnel because like the Strigoi weren't where they thought they were, but then they were behind a tunnel, and then they end up like getting trapped by the Strigoi in somewhere, and like the Strigoi are like, hey, one of you is gonna like transfer and become one of us, but then one of you is like gonna die, or all of you are gonna die except for that one. And I loved how, and then also like earlier in the book, Rose tells Mia, is it Mia or Maya? I can't remember what the audiobook said because it's spelled M-I-A, but I think in the audiobook they said Maya. I'm pretty sure it said Maya. But again, whatever her name is, she is I won't say waterbender, but she can yield water or whatever. And Rose is like, well, you know, that's a pretty useless power because, you know, I don't know of any stories that, you know, that was able to damage a Strigoi. But then at the end when she uses that aquarium and like bursts the water out, and then like that's what kind of saves them, and then she has to like make this side note to Christian to try to get him to recognize that he needs to like set that plastic stuff that's tying them together on fire. Like that was just exhilarating. I love that part of the book. As I think I mentioned earlier too, also, the whole relationship with Rose and her mother is so tense, and then Rose getting a black eye from her own mother when they're like training and stuff, and just, just such tense dynamics that, you know, and then her mom is like yelling at her towards the end of the book because she's like, quit flirting with all these men, everyone's gonna think you're a whore, quit dressing like a whore, like why are you looking like such a whore? And then the book is making it sound like, oh, well, maybe I just didn't understand my mother because she had me so young, and because she had me so young, like her life's been so hard. And I'm like, but she doesn't have to yell at you and call you a whore. Like she can just be like, hey, can you understand what you're doing and how this looks, what you're doing? Like there's just a way to be more respectful towards your daughter, you know, but you just punched her in the face. Like that's not very nice. But I did kind of appreciate the whole Rose having she was thinking to herself like, okay, well my mom has these marks and she thinks that she's so cool and so noble because she has these marks, but then Dimitri is like, I don't think that's how she feels. And then by the end, after Rose kills these Strigoi and like basically Rose kills Eastergoy, and then she gets her marks because every time you kill Eastergoy, you get like a mark. But now these marks are always going to remind her like of her friend that she lost. So, and I'm sure that's happened to her mom. Her mom probably lost friends also. So her mom probably just doesn't have a whole lot of patience for some bullshit. But at the same time, like, this is your 17-year-old daughter. Like, you don't have to be such a bitch. But I guess it makes sense considering that her daughter, Rose, is like, she is definitely no bullshit kind of girl. So kind of makes sense. Okay, also, let's just talk about how Tasha was in this book literally just to make Rose jealous. Because by the end of the book, she's no longer an issue. And also by the end of the book, Mason's no longer an issue. So it's clear that like Dimitri and Rose are going to be, you know, I don't know. There's definitely this forbidden love aspect to it that I've come to realize that I just love in stories. Like age gap or like Romeo Juliet. Like there's forbidden romance that some other authors have put into books that I'm not a fan of. But in here, I don't mind the age gap. Like, I think it's fine. And because like you are constantly in Rose's head, and Rose is the one who was like actively thinking about this man and wanting to be with this man. So to me, it feels less problematic, if you will. Speaking of Dimitri, so then at the end he's like, well, you know, I see you as this little girl, but I shouldn't see you as a little girl because you're so grown up, and you've, you know, because there's like someone was telling her like, oh, well, you'll understand more when you get older and all this weird stuff like that, and or something like that. And he was saying, you know, we shouldn't treat you like that because look at what you've done, and you've killed these people and like whatever. I'm just really curious about Adrian. Like, I think I'm just the most intrigued to keep reading because of Adrian and like Lys's power. Like, what is she gonna do with this power? Because the next book I think is called Shadow Kiss? Yeah, the fact that the next book is called Shadow Kiss, like, what is gonna happen? I can't wait. Also, not sure if I mentioned this, but I do feel like it's important to mention that, like, Mia, or Maya, again, I still don't remember how her name is said, but her mom is killed by the Strigoi, which is, like, a very clear motivator for her to follow Mason and Eddie, and I'm pretty sure I mentioned it because there was a thing I appreciated in here about the conversation with Rose, and I'm just gonna say Maya, I think it's Maya. Rose and Maya about her, I'm probably wrong, but it doesn't matter. Rose and Maya, Mia, whatever, have a conversation, and Rose is like, I'm so sorry about what happened to your mother, and Mia's like, well, you're lying or something, and then Rose is like, I wouldn't even wish them upon my worst enemy, which Mia basically is, even though, and then she's like, actually, no, maybe she's not my worst enemy. And it's almost like we're gonna get kind of a slow burn friendship, which I'm also here for. So even though I did super love Mr. Mason, and I really wanted better for him, I think I'm okay with Dimitri and Rose's relationship because clearly they want each other from the way this is written, and I think I'm okay with that. So overall, I gave this 4 stars. My review on Goodreads is just the word fuck because of Mason, and feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you'd like, I will also leave my Goodreads Instagram and Twitter for you to check out if you would like. I definitely will be continuing the series. Hopefully I can finish it faster than I finished this one because I've seen the comments, girlies. I've seen the comments. I know I've seen what you guys want, and this, I'll be making it a priority, okay? Okay. Have a great day. Bye.